good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to some part of the world. My name is Prashanth Nair. I am a die-hard Manchester United fan, and today with me for the FIIOB's edition of the podcast, we've got two special people and two people who I know very well. For example, Dinesh is a great friend of mine. He's a passionate Chelsea fan, and we always banter. My relationship with Dinesh is just like my relationship with trolls. Whenever I see a troll, I forward to Dinesh, and that's usually the time when Chelsea lose. Apart from that, I know Pranav because Pranav is a very opinionated and voiceful United fan who always speaks whatever is in his head, and seldom he's wrong about it, but most of the opinions are very sensible. Without much further ado, guys, I'll just tell you what the whole conversation is going to be about. We're not going to talk about United versus Chelsea in a different way. They're going to keep it fun, casual, super chilled because we've already done a video on predictions and tactics and everything. And I think after a point of time, all this doesn't matter in a big game because of what matters in a big game is who gets the first goal. And considering Manchester United currently, I don't think we're going to win in a big game because we're going to be super pragmatic.
Wait, it's Stamford Bridge. I mean,
Come on.
Stamford Bridge means that
You're
3 points are dropped
downplaying.
before we start the match. I mean, before we start the match, I expect 3 points dropped at Stamford Bridge. So
Yeah,
I'm not
exactly,
really.
man. Not much
not-
of
It's a
a
chill
hope.
match.
Not when Chicharito was playing. Trust me, we hate him more than any United player. He
Goal in
scores
36
against.
seconds and then Vidic
Yeah.
scored the
Yeah, but
header.
also that's true. But also the fact is that even though people used to say referee United, Stamford Bridge was one place where we have actually been on the receiving end of also few decisions sometimes, and it just felt like no matter what we do, we'd always lose or draw there. I mean, for 10 years we couldn't win there, and even when we won
I think
there,
the only
so
one was
much
the offside goal
controversy.
of Chicharito, right? The offside
Ah,
goal
Yeah,
of
yeah,
Chicharito.
yeah.
offside by 3 miles. I mean,
Just to kick off the conversation, Pranav, let me just ask you first. Who is the first United player you have seen since Alex Ferguson has retired?
since Alex Ferguson has retired, oh my,
Yeah.
it's a very difficult question to ask because
Hmm.
there are just far too many. But
Exactly.
I mean, I'm. Let's see. Who's the worst player we've seen? I think. Okay, I'm gonna get a little slack for this. I'm gonna say Pogba
Oh
purely
my god.
because
Oh my God.
purely because I'm
Ooh.
purely because
Hitting the
86
nerve.
million we've played for this guy, and this guy has had more haircuts than goals and assists ever since he came. I mean, so much showboating and whatnot. I mean, he frustrates me so much each time he plays.
Hmm.
I mean, I actually have to control myself whenever I watch the TV and he's in the side. I mean, and when the news of Raiola came out, I was like in such a abusive mode. I was like, just get out of my club. I don't want you
Hmm.
anywhere here.
Fair enough, but
Then
you know,
he's,
Pranav,
I mean,
I'll just interrupt you and I'll tell you five names who I think are far more worse than Paul Pogba. But I do understand where you're coming from, right? We've signed a guy who can potentially change the course of a match. Apparently, can change the course of a match with a pass. He's supposed to win the World Cup, etc., and he won whatever. But I'll tell you five other names who I think should be on the list at least whenever you're making a flop. First one is Radamel Falcao, the man who scored a hat trick against Chelsea in UEFA Super Cup. I
Yep.
remember the
oh
first time
my.
I went to Old Trafford, right? I watched Radamel Falcao and I had
I
a signed
forgot he even
jersey.
played for us, man. It's such a long time ago. I
I know it.
remember his header against Everton, which won us a game. I mean,
Correct.
De Gea actually saved a penalty. I mean, wow, he saved a penalty. Just
Long back.
let's just keep
Long
that.
back.
Okay.
Right? That
So
is
the
Radamel
second one.
Falcao. Then there was Matteo Darmian who played. My goodness.
Oh my
Horrible
goodness,
player. Horrible player.
my goodness.
Okay.
I
Then
had
there was
forgotten him as well. Is such. I mean, I think all the bad players they've gone out of my mind because they were just so bad. I mean,
so bad,
anyway,
right?
he's up there
Is
with one
up
of the
there.
best.
Okay. Then the third person who I've seen very bad is Bastian Schweinsteiger. Due respect to the
Oh
gentleman,
my God.
great footballer,
He's
but
one of my favorite players. I
yeah,
mean,
exactly, great footballer. And people who have watched Premier League or any other league for some time, everyone knew Bastian Schweinsteiger was like the player who could define Roy Keane's position. That was what our
I was
head.
so happy when he joined. I mean,
Hmm.
that 2010 World Cup game where he kept Messi in his pocket.
Messi,
I mean,
Just
he's
correct. The fourth one is Victor Valdez.
oh.
Okay, one
Okay.
of the
I have
greatest players of all time in
actually
terms of
forgotten him.
goalkeepers, right? One of the greatest goalkeepers, and people can berate that Barcelona team. Or United fans can definitely berate that Barcelona team because we lost two Champions League finals, whatever. But
Yeah.
the fact is that tiki-taka football of Barcelona, more than Xavi, Iniesta, Messi, one guy who's underrated there is Victor Valdez. All the plaudits will be taken by Messi, Busquets, Gerard
Evolve,
Piqué, all those sort
evolve.
of guys. But
Wasn't he
Victor
one of the
Valdez,
first sweepers in the modern
hmm,
era under Pep? He was a more of a sweeper keeper himself.
Yeah, like
exactly
what
right.
Neuer is doing right now with Munich. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Absolutely. Then
Or
one
Ederson.
important
And
player, who we finally got rid of right now in the transfer window is Marcos Rojo. My goodness,
oh my
Marcos
god.
Rojo is like me playing in FIFA, where whenever the player is an expert mode and I can't win the ball, I'll just back tackle him. I don't care, then I'll quit the game.
You
Right?
mentioned
Marcos Rojo was that.
Yeah.
yeah, you mentioned since Fergie left, otherwise I would have said Phil Jones as well. But anyway,
Hmm.
he's a Fergie signing. So
Yeah, yeah. Fergie signing was apparently going to be the next Duncan Edwards or
Good,
whatever.
good five choices, Prashant. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Dinesh, I'll ask you the same question. Worst five players ever to play for Chelsea, let's say since the first term of Jose Mourinho.
Okay. In that, the first name that comes to my mind is Andriy Shevchenko,
My
because
goodness.
when he came to Chelsea, it was huge expectations of a prodigy coming to Chelsea, and that
Hey,
will
he wasn't
solve.
a prodigy, man. He was more of a Ballon d'Or winner from AC Milan
he
to
was
Inter.
Yeah,
a
yeah.
world
So
class player when he came. I mean,
yeah,
he
so
was
Yeah.
we were all thinking that he will come and just
Hmm.
end the curse of strikers that we were having, and it
Hmm.
all turned out to be shit.
Oh,
So
I just forgot that you had Adrian Mutu as a striker. Yeah, fair
I
enough.
was going to say that. Well, you forgot him, man. Come on. And Chelsea is the same team that had Loic Remy, who was a hot striker, Gonzalo Higuain. I mean, Chelsea and strikers, the
Alvaro
youngsters
Morata,
we
not
have.
to forget, man. Alvaro
Morata.
Morata.
so the
And the big
Alexander Pato, Radamel Falcao.
that
I mean, the only
Pato.
guy who failed in one season at United and Chelsea went on to sign him. And the worst part is, I remember he scored a goal against Crystal Palace in the opening day, 1-0, and this lost the game 2-1.
so the second one also is from the
Let him.
strikers department itself, like Daniel Sturridge. Like he came with such big expectations, and then
Reputation and
he,
all,
he
yeah.
was he, yeah he was thought to be the next English striker who will replace Giants, and he just turned out to be shit. So that is
I
the
mean,
second one.
the most annoying thing about Sturridge even as a neutral was that he would just not pass the ball when he should. He used to do all sorts of skills he would do, and all
Yeah.
that dance. I mean, that dance he would do used to really annoy the hell out of me. And
Yeah.
he would not. Even when he scored, I remember that game against Chelsea, 3-3 game. He got a goal only because Evans was in the wrong place. Else
Correct.
he would have probably hit that ball behind the touchline. I mean,
Absolutely.
he was just
Yeah.
wasting his time doing all these skills. I mean.
Fair, huh?
And
You've taken a big name, Daniel Sturridge, because he's probably a cult hero for Liverpool fans.
yeah, and the moving on, third one would be Kepa Arrizabalaga. Might be surprising for you guys, but the thing is, you are paying 72 million pounds for a
But
goalkeeper.
Dinesh,
He
I
comes.
really hope he starts tomorrow. Huh?
Oh no,
We can,
please! I'm good with
Dinesh,
Mendy.
I'm very rarely wrong about players, and Kepa was a player I never liked. I always said he's going to be a flop, and my Chelsea friends never listened to me. And well,
hmm.
uh, Talking about that, there were some videos that came out. The way he moves, like the initial movement that he makes when the ball is shot
Hmm.
towards him, that has so many technical problems. That was shown by
right,
many experts. That this guy, the initial movement itself that he makes towards both sides, that is hindering his reach on both the sides.
Okay,
So
fair enough.
right,
Hmm.
so
right.
that's why you have seen that whenever a shot comes, this guy is clueless to do what, like he just watches the ball go past him and does not
That
do
only
anything.
reminds me of one man. That's Gary Cahill. Whenever a striker runs with Gary Cahill runs behind. I remember that Aguero and Harry Kane, both of them doing the same thing the New Year game in the 5-3 loss, right?
Yeah.
They just took
Yeah.
Harry Cahill apart. But anyways, go
And
on.
that's and
and
Gary
and
Cahill was so embarrassed he had to kick Harry Kane in the back.
but then we are
That was
happy
Jose
that
Posimba at
we
the
got
corner flag.
we got
Yeah,
Gary Cahill for what, 8 million or 12 million
Hmm.
from Bolton, and he
Yeah.
won so many titles. He has won everything with us. So
he's not that bad. Initially, he was a good
he
like old style
He was
defender.
decent.
Good at
he's
Yeah,
a,
he was
he's
decent.
he's a built up old school defender, who no nonsense defender. Like you put a cross inside the box, he will clear it with whatever he has. So that's kind of a defender that we like actually back at Chelsea.
Hmm.
Moving on to the fourth one would be someone named as Yossi Benayoun. Hope
My
you have.
goodness, the man who played for Liverpool and Chelsea, just like Raul Meireles did.
Oh my, yeah.
Yossi Benayoun was like, we were like, why did we even sign him to Chelsea? Like, we never needed a person in that position at that
Please
time.
ask Evren Grant and the quality of Israeli players he wanted to sign.
And he came and he went without no one realizing that such a player came and went. So that
आया
is
और गया किसी को पता नहीं चला.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
We
And
have
and
five players. Hmm.
yeah, and the fifth one would be a surprising one for you guys. It should be Nicholas Anelka. I feel he hasn't been a great signing for us.
Hmm.
He came and he just filled in the void which Drogba once upon a time when he just moves out of the team, then comes back, and Salomon Kalou comes in and goes out. Those voids he filled in some games, but never a French proper striker who we thought he will make a difference at Chelsea. So these are my top five.
You just took one name, and I'll probably take the conversation to that name, right?
Yeah,
As a United fan growing up watching Chelsea, one player I absolutely hated was the guy who stopped a civil war in his country just
Drogba.
by making sure people believed in his ideology. It was Didier Drogba. And I'll tell you my reason of hate. It's not hate. It's hate out of respect for the gentleman. It's more like a dislike, if I have to use the right word. And that's because when you talk about Chelsea and a big game, right? I was
Yeah.
assured of one thing: if there will be no guy who will stand up, this gentleman will stand up, and because he wants to win it. And Jose Mourinho in his interview said that there are days where everyone is not looking sharp in the training, but he does not remember a day where Didier Drogba didn't look sharp. People always forget that Didier Drogba peaked a little late in the Premier League because he had a stomach injury in the start of his career, where he was not fully fit for the season, and then he was off, etc., etc. And Jose Mourinho kept telling Chelsea fans that you have to believe in the striker. He will be the guy who will bring glory to Chelsea. And look what turned out, right? He's the guy who made Chelsea relevant. And when I say relevant, not in a negative way, Chelsea, what was Chelsea's biggest nickname? Everyone called Chelsea as a historyless club. Why? Because they were not in the Champions League winning list. Right? When you talk about people who won Champions League in England, you had someone like Nottingham Forest who's in Division 1, Division 2 right now. Teams like United, Liverpool, they've all won Champions Leagues, and Chelsea apparently have won the Premier League, but not the Champions League. So that made them historyless, according to some fans in certain section. And of course, that was the taunt which most United fans also did it back then. And
yeah.
then step up Didier Drogba. I mean, I will never forget that header against Bayern Munich. And I remember I was in hostel back then. I was watching it in my hostel mess late in the night. It was around 2:30, and I was just watching. I was like, just avoid this corner, because I was supporting Bayern Munich that night. I was like, let Chelsea not win this. I don't want Chelsea
Absolutely.
to
I
beat
mean,
up and say that, we also
that's
want to
the that's the luckiest
and I
victory in
remember
perhaps in
Pranav, that
sporting
cross
history.
came. Yeah, that cross came, and I saw Didier Drogba jumping. I still remember it as a slow motion. I saw him jumping. I was like, that's it, done. And my friends were like, "होगा कुछ नहीं होगा." I was like, you just wait and watch now. And that's
I'll
exactly what it
And
happened.
I'll
Drogba
I'll
Bayern Munich had
I'll
Daniel Van Bouten, who was there, who should have marked him, and he's even bigger than
exactly.
Drogba, and he didn't move his ass. He just had to
And the
move
I'll
worst,
a
and the
little bit,
worst
and
part
he
is
would
this
have
is
stopped him.
possibly the first Chelsea team who can line up in a final, man. This is
Absolutely.
not
It
even
was
question.
I'll
But
I'll
anyways, having said that, right? Having said that, I mean, at least whenever we won the Champions League twice, our captain who was suspended, who was in the coat and blazer, did not come out in his jersey to collect the trophy. But fair enough.
just
Jay
just
did
just
it. He
just
deserved it.
just to add to it, like I'll share an interesting story since you talked about the header that Drogba scored at Allianz Arena. I went
Mm,
for a tour there in Allianz Arena, and the guide was super excited to show me around the places, the
mm,
ground, and everything.
mm,
And I cheekily asked him as he was showing me the ground, which is the end where Drogba scored the penalty. And his
mm.
face suddenly turned red and like,
Right.
dude, where are you from? I said, I'm from India. And like, which club do you support? I support Chelsea. And he's like, I'm not talking to you for the rest of the tour. You can check out the stadium for yourself. It's all yours.
But
I
Dinesh,
was
that
sorry.
whole I'm just saying that the whole Drogba affair with Chelsea, right? You remember, you think about all the strikers who Chelsea sent; they were all better than Didier Drogba. Each and every one of them were better than Didier Drogba. Andrei Shevchenko is miles better than Didier Drogba in terms of his legacy, the way how he finishes, etc., etc. But Didier Drogba did not let him settle because he had his standards up there.
Yeah,
You talk
see,
about all the Chelseas who
To
played.
be fair,
Is
Drogba was
the
never a proper striker. He was the classic centre forward which you had, with
that
exactly,
he was
exactly.
never
Like,
a clean striker. He
both
was
of
a
you, Pranav and Dinesh, this is my question. Is it that Didier Drogba made sure that that position where he played was only his because of his unique skill set, or none of the players could understand the demands of how Chelsea, as a number 9 at Chelsea, needed to play? Is it a bit of both, or is it
uh,
just one?
See,
Can I
when
answer
Drogba,
first? I'll just.
yeah, sure, please go ahead.
Yes,
So I actually will go with the second part because see, if you look at Mourinho teams, he demands a lot from his players, and
correct.
everywhere, even if you look at Real Madrid, there always was a number nine whose game was more than scoring goals, was actually being the focal point for the team. And
Yeah.
Drogba, with his physicality, he did that perfectly. Of course, the fact that he would go down easily used to always annoy me, given that he was such a strong guy. And if I ever shook his hand, I'm sure he could even pull my hand off. So he was that big, strong guy who could, be the focal point and get everyone around him. And I think that was the real problem. Shevchenko was not that kind of player, and
Mm.
Fernando Torres. I mean, of course, he was after his knee injury, he was completely gone because his game was all about pace. But Fernando Torres used to, glide past players like Vidic, and Vidic
Yeah,
used
we
to
hated, we
absolutely hate
hated him at Liverpool, man. We all remember that, right?
that burst of pace always
Yeah,
troubled Vidic and Ferdinand.
that
And even
mind
though Rio was
acceleration.
smart, right?
So,
Whereas
so
we didn't struggle, he didn't struggle against Drogba as much because Vidic was very physical and Rio also was a big guy. But
Mm.
that's
Mm.
the main thing. No Chelsea striker apart from Didier Drogba. I think Costa only for one season
Fair.
understood the demands of playing in a Mourinho system. All
uh,
of them were people who, maybe if they played even in a United system would have done better. But in that system, they did not understand what were the requirements. It's not that
Yeah,
they were not good players; they just didn't understand what was needed.
correct.
So
Fair.
so
they should continue.
So when Drogba was signed from Marseille, I guess for 32 million pounds, which was a
Correct.
very huge amount at that
Correct,
time,
correct,
the
correct.
whole English media was shouting like this person does not have a good first touch. He is not a two-footed striker.
Mm.
Everyone was skeptical about his aerial prowess. And the
Yeah,
thing is, this guy came and Jose Mourinho told, don't decide, keep your judgments reserved when he leaves the club.
yeah.
See what happens when he leaves the club, which is exactly
I
what he
know.
did.
I don't know if it's
Had a
appropriate to
statue
say,
built
but
for him, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
so
know if
so
it's
so
appropriate to say,
so
but
so so
DDA,
if you ask me, is his first touch good? I would say no. Torres had a better first touch, or a Shevchenko had a better first touch. He's not a dribbler of the ball as
Correct.
crazy as
Eden
say.
Hazard was.
Yeah, exactly. But he gets the job done in the most dirtiest way if needed possible. He gets it done.
Mm.
We had such a striker when I saw Costa come in, exactly supporting Pranav's point. Now, what Giroud is doing is also the same thing. He holds the ball, sees the runners on the both sides, and just distributes it and does the job. So,
Fair.
that's what I feel. It's tough to find such strikers these days.
Mm.
And you would agree with me. You will not find a Ruud van Nistelrooy anytime soon again in United, right?
So we,
absolutely.
I just take it. I just take this argument. You mentioned about a guy called as Drogba.
Yeah.
On top of it, you mentioned about a guy called as Ruud van Nistelrooy, and these two are probably one of the greatest strikers who have played in the Premier League. But right now, what Manchester United have is ice cold Anthony Martial. What he God knows.
Tony
And you know
Martial.
he,
I'm
Whenever he gets
he
the
comes from
yeah, whenever
France.
Tony Martial, he comes from France. He comes to hit the ball in the stands. That's all I. Whenever he gets the ball at his feet, I'm nowadays. I just. I mean,
First years, when he was cutting inside from the left side and curling it in the right hand bottom corner,
his
that
debut
reminded me
goal
of
against
Henry.
Liverpool.
But
The
then
Liverpool goal. I mean, the debut goal. That was like I was
I
off my
was
seat. I
scared,
mean, that was.
especially
He's
since he's coming from Thierry Henry's same coaching grounds. So I thought that you guys have found the answer for every need that you had up front, and then thank God it
Well,
has
the
not happened
problem
that
is
way.
that there's
I'm
a
just
better player than him in his
like,
position, that is
yeah,
Rashford, and
just to
Rashford
be
cannot play as a
anonymous,
number
right?
nine. So
Because if I say something right, it'll be very nasty, which I don't. I'll be as so Thierry Henry and Anthony Martial. You're trying to compare Sergio Ramos and Chris Smalling,
I'm
bro.
talking when
They're
he
just two
came, when
different
he
ends
came.
of spectrum. When
Because
he came,
English fans have see, no offense, but English fans have an ability to hype up things.
hmm,
I would say if Son was
like
an English
Billy
player,
Gilmore was next
usually
version
they
of
hype up.
Xavi and all that,
yeah,
right?
like if
Usually they
Son,
hype up their own players more than
yeah,
foreign
if
players.
Son was not a Korean and he was an English player, you can just imagine what they would have written about him
He would
by
be
this
Chris
time.
Yeah.
Sutton right now.
Exactly.
He
Well,
So
remains
the
hot.
same thing can be said about Ole. I'm not an Ole in guy, but Ole gets criticized because he's not English, and Lampard used to get a free pass most of the
yeah,
time for the
yeah,
same
I
reason. So
completely agree with you. Yeah.
I'll just tell you this joke, okay? Back then, when I was in India, when there was peak lockdown and stuff, suddenly they decided Amazon was going to deliver. As soon as they said Amazon was going to deliver, right, I started ordering left, right, center. Okay, And so many things came. Suddenly, my father looked at me and he was like, "What's wrong with you? What have you ordered? Scented candles for what? Joy? Pillow covers?" I said, "I was just bored, so I ordered." Fast forwards August, then I saw Chelsea doing the same kind of business. Whoever they saw in the market, they just bought it. It was Ben
Yeah.
Chilwell. Fair, I understood they needed a left back. Suddenly, keeper because they didn't trust Kepa, Hakim Ziyech, Kai Havertz, Timo Werner. And I was just looking at the list. I was like, "भाई क्या चल रहा है ये? Lampard को क्या होगा? इतना time तो ठीक था ये." Then one of a
Correct
Chelsea
me if
friend
I'm
of mine
wrong. I
told
think
me,
one of them was already, the agreement was done even before that. I
correct,
think it was
You mean
Ziyech.
Pulisic?
Ziyech was done quite early, I believe.
Yeah, yeah,
Ziyech,
yeah.
Ziyech was done early. And I remember a friend of mine is Chelsea fan. He said, "You wait and watch. We are going to sign Thiago Silva as well because he's going to be out of contract." I just looked at him and I was like, "Are you okay? You've already got six guys, dude. You're getting a seventh guy. What is wrong with you people?" He's like, "No, no, we need to bolster our defense." I was like, "You had Andres Christensen, who was supposedly the next big thing, etc., etc." And then suddenly the season started, and I saw a Chelsea unit which did not have any cohesion. Everything depended on Pulisic. Sadly, he got injured. Then everything came down to Mason
Ziyech
Mount
was
because
also
suddenly,
injured at the start of the season. He was
sorry,
barely involved. Ziyech also was injured in training before the season, and he's barely,
he gave me three FPL points in one match, and then I was very happy.
See,
I
the
was like,
very
point is,
"Oh, yeah."
the point is we had a lot of reserve funds which we did not use, and there was this transfer ban also
You
which
can't,
happened.
you
Yeah,
can't,
yeah.
do.
Even with all these spendings, Chelsea has a net spend less than many other clubs right now. Like the money which was not utilized after selling Hazard or Diego Costa all came into picture once this transfer ban was like lifted, and
yeah.
Mm.
yeah, hell went crazy.
Dinesh, you look at current Manchester United team right now. Okay,
Yeah.
when I say look about the team, right, we are currently not a team yet. We
Hmm.
are still in the developing phase. We are close, but still not close enough. As a rival fan, what is your opinion on a guy who I think his statue will be built in couple of years' time if he
Hmm.
continues the way he is, which is Bruno Fernandes, the man who we signed from Sporting. What is your opinion as a rival fan?
I think it's been a great signing for you guys. He is doing a lot of things which you did not see many midfielders do for you for a very long time, like being the creative force inside the midfield.
Hmm.
And he's also scoring good goals, which is also a positive. He's scoring no nonsense penalties, again a good point. And for the
Hmm.
money which you have
I like
spent,
how
I
you
think.
said it. No nonsense penalties. Good.
so
Fernandes.
so it's been a very good signing for you, but
Hmm.
to move forward you will really need to look into the whole team as such. Like, are you going to build a team around Bruno Fernandes, or are you going to see, when Pogba was signed for 80 odd million, you thought that a team will be developed around Pogba, but it did not happen.
Hmm.
And to have a system in place is much more important for a football team right now in these days, compared to
Hmm.
having one single player just holding everything together. The
Correct.
same is happening with Barcelona as well. You cannot build another big team around Messi, and if he leaves, that's the best that can happen to them.
I'll just say hold on to that thought, Dinesh. I'll just move to Pranav.
Yeah.
Pranav, he said something very interesting, which I agree to a certain extent, but I disagree as well. But before I actually say what I disagree with, let me ask you this question. Of course, Bruno Fernandes has exceeded expectations from what we had in the first season from him. And he's slowly and steadily stepping up. And I'm sure the big game jinx will be broken sometime soon. I don't know if it's going to be Chelsea, City, whenever. Whenever we face another big team, the jinx will be broken. My question to you is he said something that if you're building this team around Bruno Fernandes, it looks good, but it is difficult. But for that, you need to have a system in place. Currently, United's way of attack is very simple, right? What's a way of attack, Pranav? Counter attack. You press us, we will go and counter and
No,
hit.
no, no, not just counter attack on the left wing. Please,
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
please be specific.
But
On
or
left wing,
whichever or whichever wing Rashford is playing.
right?
unlike India,
We
unlike
are a
India, our
two-man
right wing
team,
is
I
in
say.
action. So,
Yeah, Bruno
yeah.
Fernandes and Marcus Rashford. If these two guys do not
Hmm.
score, we're gone. There's nobody else who's going to do anything for the team.
Pranav, do you really think what Dinesh said will hamper us in the long run?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it for a long time that this
Hmm.
team does not have a proper system in place. I mean,
Hmm.
even the other day, Rashford scored a goal out of pure brilliance. I mean, Newcastle were quite steady until Rashford, had that superb moment, and then
Ronaldo
of
has.
course, yeah, and then of course, Bonehead Maguire or Slabhead Maguire
My goodness.
assisted the goal at the other end.
Hmm.
And again, when we needed something, Bruno, even accidentally, he gets a touch, and then Daniel James scored, and then of course the penalty. The whole
Hmm.
issue is that building a team around Bruno is a good thing, but there has to be people apart from Bruno. Bruno is the only talisman in the team. We need a couple of other more players who can be talisman players. And in theory, Pogba can be that guy, but I don't know if he will be. And only then this team can actually move forward. The thing is, it is Bruno, then a gap, Rashford, and then of the rest, कोई भी जिसको आ गया अगर बॉल और मार दो, like that Southampton game. Let's go.
जिसका दिन रहा
Yeah.
जिसका है वो कभी बैन भी
that is the whole problem. And
If Greenwood develops, then yeah, you have a very big prospect out there. Like he's
Greenwood is
two-footed
a striker. He's not a right winger. But as we have discussed in the group, that a lot of young strikers, even Fergie, like to play out wide so that they can improve their game. But Greenwood has to be a future striker. He cannot display on the right. He said to Rio in a YouTube live that he's happy to play for the club in any position. But Greenwood is a born striker, and Greenwood is the best talent at the club right now. And it's good that he's not played a lot this season, because last season he did really well and he played a lot. And then of course the nonsense issue, and because he's a black kid and he got way more than Foden, despite
Like
both of the kids making a mistake. I mean, I like both the guys. I like Foden very much too, and they made a mistake at 20-year-old boys who had a moment. I mean, it's not a
had a
big
lot
deal.
of money. That's
Yeah,
the point.
that's
Yeah,
true.
that's the catch
But,
there.
kids do stupid things, and it's okay you criticize them for a while, but I think Mason was really affected by it a lot.
Yeah.
And Ole has actually done a good job in protecting him and shielding him from the media. And when he scored that wonderful goal against Liverpool, he did that haters can't hear the noise thing. I mean, that was clearly for that reason. So I mean, I agree, Dinesh is right. We need a proper system in place. I mean, Chelsea ka game in theory could play in our favor, like the way counter attack पे खेल के we can do it, but top
Lampard नहीं है
six,
manager अब. Lampard ने the same mistake twice.
only one goal against top six.
One
Yeah.
second, one second.
One
Ole
penalty goal.
beat Tuchel when he was a manager for PSG. So let's not tell that
Yeah, that's
Lampard गया
true.
सब कुछ ठीक हो गया.
But Dinesh, let me before I
Thomas
ask
is
you,
a very smart guy. Thomas is a tactician. He loves
that's
tactics.
secondary aspect. That's secondary aspect, Pranav. Whether
I expect
Tuchel-
him to improve. I expect him to do better tomorrow than before. But
Pranav,
never.
I have this question for you specifically. We've looked at Chelsea as a team last year or even last year. We said they're naive team. They're not strong, because for you and
Right.
me, when we grew up watching Chelsea, right? I hated the Chelsea
Hard as
midfield, especially
hard as
right,
nails.
Essien, Ballack, Lampard, that midfield. That I hated it. One, because
Makelele.
Essien and Makelele. I forgot Makelele also. One, Essien would not just leave your midfielders.
John
Then if
Obi
you left
Mikel.
Essien, then there was Stanislav Ivanovic who would come and tackle. If you forgot, then there was Ricardo Carvalho and there was John Terry and there was Peter Cech. You look at their midfield, right? They were made of steel. They were not some ordinary men. They were alpha males who wanted to win. And on top of it, they had Jose Mourinho. Now, my point
The
here
biggest
is
alpha male of the time.
exactly right. Now you look at current Chelsea team. They're kids. They're a bunch of kids. When I use the word kids, it's not out of disrespect. It's out of the lack of maturity which these guys have, irrespective of the age. And I'm sure there are players like Aspilicueta, Jorginho, Kovacic who are on the older side of the 20s, not like Billy Gilmore who's very young. You have a Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, but I don't find this Chelsea team threatening. I find this Chelsea team, if I have to use the word, I just find it a bunch of 15 kids who have just assembled together and suddenly they have been made a team. Now, according to you, what is Thomas Tuchel's biggest challenge? Because remember this, okay? He will not get time at Chelsea unlike he got at PSG. Roman Abramovich is not a very nice, kind person.
He's
Right?
not an Arsenal owner.
Exactly. I didn't want to say that, but yeah. But I'm saying that Abramovich means business. Okay, if things do not go well, he will call his best friend who's sitting, "Bhai retirement se aaja, wapas manage kar le."
Yeah.
He will
Or
do
Avram
it.
Grant, one of them.
Or Avram
Whoever
Grant,
is.
whoever, right? That's
Whoever
first
is.
question to you. Will Thomas Tuchel get? Of course, he'll get a season, is what I think. But what will be his biggest challenge? Second part, how do you solve a problem like Kai Havertz? Suddenly, all the hype is around Mason Mount, right? And now people forgot that Chelsea signed a guy from Leverkusen, which the entire world wanted at one point of time.
Yeah.
Bayern Munich wanted him. If I'm not wrong, Barcelona were interested in him. Of course, I'm not going to talk about Arsenal interested, etc., because they are interested in every other player who's there. But I'm talking about serious teams. Now Kai Havertz has become an 89 million problem, which they don't know how to solve it. right? So if you are Thomas Tuchel, or if I put you in Chelsea fans' perspective, how would you resolve these two problems, or what is your perspective from Thomas Tuchel's perspective, from Thomas Tuchel's end?
Right. So the thing with Thomas is that he's a very, like I said, a highly tactical manager, and he's a very intelligent guy. His love for football, his love for stats, and how to get the players to play in that way he likes, is well known. The thing
Mm,
is, now he's inherited a squad that was not his. So I guess whatever he does in this till the end of the season, I guess we can't look into it much. But now, like you said, Kai
mm,
Havertz, he has Werner, he has to solve this issue. Now, if you remember,
mm.
Kai is best placed when he's playing as a false nine. He can't play deep in midfield and he can't play too far right. He's supposed to play as a false nine. That's what he did at Leverkusen, and that's, I think, his best position. And for
Correct.
Werner, his best position is like how Rooney played as a second striker, off the shoulder of the front man, which he did against for Leipzig. He did it off Poulsen and off Shack.
Mm,
And his game is to make those darting runs, because Werner, he's not the biggest of dribblers, nor is he a guy who cuts past players. His game is to run into space.
mm,
Now, these two playing up front, I think it could be a solution. But then now you have Giroud, who's already unstoppable, the big guy, and you have Tammy Abraham, who and Lampard promoted young players: Abraham, Mount, Reece
mm,
James, now
mm,
Billy Gilmore, and he bought Chilwell in,
mm,
and Zuma also is kind of a young guy as well. So
mm.
I think
Christensen,
he
he's
has.
not that old as well. Christensen, another
So I
aspect. Yeah.
think he's got to take some tough calls once the season is done. I mean, if he can somehow get, because they're German, get those two guys playing together and working well in his system, well and good. Otherwise, I think one of them would have to make way if Thomas has to do well. And Thomas likes to play with three people at the back, and he wants wing backs. And Hudson-Odoi is undoubtedly one of his favorite players, because he's such a favorite of his that he can criticize him in public for his attitude, and it's still fine. He plays again, so
If it
he's
was
going to
Mourinho, he would have been lynched by now.
lynched. Yeah, absolutely. So I think his best solution is to still try the two of them, Werner and Havertz, but I do not think that will happen right now.
Mm.
Then what is the second question you had asked? I forgot. I lost.
Yeah, I
lost.
think you answered both. Like
Yeah,
Right.
you answered both.
combined. Yeah.
You have Ziyech as well, and Ziyech again. I think he prefers playing off the right and cutting in, and
Mm.
he also is a problem now. Where do you play him? I mean,
Correct. It's a
so
problem plenty for Chelsea. Now, Pranav, right? What you said, I do understand. I do get. I understand that sensation. What you're coming as a, even as a rival fan, and even when you put on a neutral's hat and when you say that he prefers three at the back, he'll have to take a tactical call, etc., etc. Now, moving to Dinesh, right? And I'm purposely asking you this question. Uh, Pranav answered from a United fan thinking about a rival, but still as a neutral. Now, I'm going to ask you a question regarding United. United have got two fullbacks. One is Luke Shaw, second is Aaron Wan-Bissaka.
Mhm.
One of the constant criticism which Aaron Wan-Bissaka has got over the last 2-3 years, even when during his Crystal Palace days, he's an excellent defender. Let's not even kid ourselves about it, because I don't remember anyone who's crossed Aaron Wan-Bissaka for fun. Because for me,
not
right?
even Mbappe, not even Mbappe with his pace can get past him.
Yeah, exactly, right. Raheem Sterling for me is one of the most quickest and trickiest forwards who can play on the wing. He does not get a sniff against Van Bissaka. When
Mhm.
Liverpool played, I'm not going to count defensive striker Bobby Firmino because he's defensive. So
Sadio
I'm just,
Mane,
No,
maybe.
but Prashant, sorry to interrupt.
yeah,
Sterling is so deep in with Van Bissaka's pocket that in the Carabao Cup game, Pep moved him to the right to handle Sterling, and he put Foden on the left for that
yeah.
reason, because he knew he
Correct.
would not get any joy against Van Bissaka.
And even Foden was very average against Van Bissaka. He
Yeah,
got once, but then Van Bissaka did a tackle. Now my
yeah.
question
I
to you,
mean, one mistake everyone makes. Yeah, so you're right. Van Bissaka is like a wall on the deep
correct.
right hand
Now you
side.
think about this, Pranav. Sorry, think about this, Dinesh. You have a defensive smart guy on the right side. On the left side, Luke Shaw has improved massively.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm one of the biggest criticizers of Luke Shaw because because we paid a bomb to sign him from Southampton. In spite of all that, he's not had one full season of 38 games.
Yeah, yeah,
Somehow the other,
understandable. Yeah,
he gets injured. Sometimes it's his weight issue. Sometimes he's not fit enough. He's got niggles.
yeah.
I had my heart in his mouth after the Everton game when he held his hamstring. I was like, there
Oh,
goes his
my.
game. Right? Now, my question to you, Dinesh, is that How do you handle set of two different fullbacks? One who's extremely balanced right now, temporarily. I don't know how long this hot run of form of Luke Shaw is going to continue. Touch wood, it
Hey, the
continues.
hamstring came out because he made a cross. Okay,
Yeah, fair.
remember that.
I don't say anything, but yeah. But you understand what I'm trying to say, right, Dinesh? They're two different set of peoples, and when you rightly said that a team needs to have a system, you can't have polarizing opposite people, especially at an important position like a fullback. For
Mhm.
example, Branislav Ivanovic and Ashley Cole. If I have to calculate a right back and a left back, right? Ashley Cole was possibly the by far the most balanced, the most complete left back what Premier League has seen.
Yeah,
Let's not
no, no, no kidding. Yeah,
and then you
Why
have a
he's
guy
one of, I would
sorry,
say he's the greatest left back of the last 20 years.
yeah, obviously.
absolutely fair.
Yeah,
But on the right hand side, you have person like Branislav Ivanovic, who is fast but not fast enough, who's great defensively, but yet a weak link at some part of the time. In
yeah,
the later half of his career, especially
yeah.
against Jefferson Montero
Last
and
year,
everything.
yeah, he was very bad.
Right now, you look at the opposite ends of the spectrum, how Chelsea handled. How
Yeah.
do you think United will handle it? Or
See,
how you should think they should handle it?
See, the way you have put the question is very nice, like how Chelsea has handled and how you see United handling the same situation. So when we had Ashley Cole on the left and Ivanovic on the right, we had someone named John Terry in the center who
Hmm.
reads the game like no one else. He plays the game like a chess match. So he sees what the moves are going to be. Now the question from my side to you will be, can Harry Maguire be that person who holds these two people?
Is that even a question?
so so my question is, can Harry Maguire be the guy who holds these two ends together and organizes the defense and the midfield line in front of him? You need someone.
Harry Maguire organized was his Instagram story posting
I mean,
stats and stuff.
well, to be
So,
fair, I would say Eric Bailly was the guy who should do that because he's got the pace and he's got the game, but at times lacks a bit of brain. That's
or
the only
or
issue with
or
him.
or if Lindelof can pitch in and do the stuff of reading the game and holding the line together, I don't think Harry Maguire will do that. I am an England fan, and I know for sure this is not the centre back who is going to win you trophies, because
Hmm.
he is a good defender, but he sometimes he cannot think properly when some things are going haywire. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
even while
yeah,
defending,
and you can't even push up forward with him. He doesn't have the
yeah.
pace either. He's got so many
When
limitations.
when when you're defending set pieces, that's very clear that he has no
Crucial.
clue how to man mark or have a streamlined defense in front of him.
All he
That's
does
what
is
it
put his
is.
big arms around a player and try to hold
Yeah.
him back because
So
because
so
he
so
has
Let's
I
not
would
strength.
say
get into
so
that
I would say
conversation at all because I really don't want to write on a Saturday evening, especially with Harry Maguire. Anyways,
I
the
I
second
would say
question,
I would say sign a good center back who can read the game very well, hold
signing is
everything together.
okay.
Oh yeah.
Signing is okay for Manchester United. But anyway, last question before I let both of you guys go. So Dinesh, who is one player from Manchester United in the current setup who you think can change tomorrow's game against Chelsea? Tomorrow
Ma-
for us and today for Pranav.
from United, right?
Yeah, from United. And of course,
Ma-
Chelsea, both.
okay, from United, I would definitely say Marcus Rashford, the
Hmm.
guy. He has scored against us in crucial games as well, and
The free kick.
maybe yeah, and a close second would be Bruno Fernandes. So these are the two players. And talking about Chelsea, I feel if Giroud
Hey, don't
starts,
forget Tony Martial. He scored 4 and 4 against Chelsea, including
oh,
three in the last two games at the bridge. Don't
I was
forget
I was
the
thinking you
hopes
guys are
might
already
turn.
pissed off with Martial discussion today for like 15 minutes, and from
Let's not get Tony Martial, please.
talking from talking from Chelsea's perspective, I would say
Hmm.
if Giroud starts, I hope he scores a good goal, and otherwise, I would say Mason Mount. Yeah, these are the two
Fair.
players. Yeah,
Pranav, same question to you. Who are you most worried about in Chelsea? And who do you think can change the match for United,
Right.
if it goes to that length?
So I agree on. I was going to say Mason Mount, not just because I like him, but he's the kind of guy who can actually, run
Hmm.
the game. And since United are going to probably sit deep, he's someone
Hmm.
who we have to be wary about with his ability. And given that how we make such basic individual errors even while defending, he's
Hmm.
one player I'm worried about. Of course, Callum
Hmm.
Hudson-Odoi as well if he's going to play on right wing back. We
Hmm.
know with Rashford going forward, Luke has to be his best. like he kept Salah in his pocket, he has to worry about him. And I'm not. I mean, I'm not. I mean, Alonso might even score tomorrow. Who knows? But I'm confident of Alonso being handled by Wan-Bissaka because he's. We know how he's good against anyone
Yeah.
who's coming one-on-one
Let's
against
not
him.
jinx it, man. Let's
Just,
really not.
Actually, I would also be a bit concerned about if Chelsea play Kante, I'll be concerned because I think he'll be constantly
He loves
going
scoring
around
again. What joy! I
against,
don't.
yeah, and he'll go
against
around,
Manchester clubs, like both of you guys.
yeah, and he'll go around trying to nibble at Bruno, and Bruno. When Fernandinho also was nibbling at him, he was kind of ineffective. So that's one of my
Yeah, that
worries.
was Fernandinho and Cancelo both.
And Cancelo both. And for United main players, of course, you can't look more ahead of Bruno because of the kind of player he is. Even when he's not having a good game,
Bruno नहीं तो
somehow or
कौन
the
सा
other,
उठाएगा?
he always somehow or the other comes into the
Yeah.
game without much. And someday or the other, he has to break this big six jinx. And of course, Rashford, because of his pace and the fact that he has a good record against Chelsea. And although I mean, this may not be a very popular opinion, I'm going to say Anthony Martial might surprise a few people
Oh,
tomorrow.
here we go. just,
I know
just,
Okay.
but again,
just,
main two threats for us are Bruno and Rashford. So
just, just to add to the Giroud point, like I came across an interesting observation saying that Giroud is like Bitcoin. No one values them much, but they perform no matter what happens.
Good one. But just to add to Pranav's point, okay, my two players from each side are this. Okay, from Chelsea, if there was one player who I'm very worried about is Reece James. That kid is special, and Reece James on one flank is danger because United don't know how to handle set pieces, and they definitely don't know how to handle crosses. Reece James can
oh
do,
my,
right? So first player I'm very worried about is Reece James. Second player who I'm actually not worried, but I just don't like him is Timo Werner because Timo Werner may be looking out of form, lackluster. But considering Manchester United, we usually give chances to such people. We always give them great conduct.
yeah, and against Maguire and Lindelof, his pace. I mean, he can if he gets past them, even he won't miss. Despite his misses, even he will not miss if he gets past
And he
either
can
of
call
them.
his idolo. He can call his idolo Fernando Torres and then ask him, "How can you miss?" Now
Thanks,
coming to
thanks. That's
United,
good one. Highly appreciated.
coming to United, two players who I really think can make a difference. One is Luke Shaw, because and the reason why I say Luke Shaw is because Chelsea sometimes when they play high line gets caught. And Luke Shaw
Right.
is an expert player who breaks highline defenses, not by just cross, but just by movement without the ball. And people don't catch his movement very quickly. Luke Shaw has added that variety to his game. That's one player who I think can make a difference. I'm not going to go with the mainstream players like Bruno, Martial, Rashford, because I know if United have to win, these three people have to perform. But one player who I think tomorrow will probably be one of his biggest tests in his good long career is Nemanja Matic.
I was
Because
going to say Matic. I knew you
yeah,
would say. I was going to say Matic.
I've never been a huge fan of Matic all my life, and I've never liked the gentleman. Not because he's a bad player or whatever. It's just that's not the kind of midfielders who I like personally. But having said that, I think if Matic does not click tomorrow, United are in for a big trouble because people just remember that tomorrow United are without Scott McTominay, Donny van de
Without,
Beek, right? Juan Mata. These people are we don't have options in midfield, so it has to be Fred and Matic, which
right.
has to
See,
start.
see, Matic, we liked Matic because we had a certain Fabregas playing next to him. So Matic just had to see that no nonsense was happening inside the midfield, and Fabregas took care of the
You'll
creative
only see
stuff.
nonsense in our midfield. Don't worry about it. Tomorrow you'll see all.
Matic actually
Let's just,
is a sweeper, not even a holding. He's just a sweeper. His job is to just
Yeah.
sweep the ball out of.
yeah, the last time I remember someone sweeping was getting LBW in Ahmedabad, which was just a straight ball. But anyways,
Yeah.
guys, thanks a lot for doing this,
Yeah.
especially Pranav and Dinesh, because I think it's been long since I actually had a fun, casual, freewheeling chat. Because most of the times, sometimes you actually miss the joy of loving or watching the game because it's just banter, right? It's not
Yeah.
just about
Right.
the 3 points or results or trophies or history or whatever. It's just banter. It was absolutely fun chatting with you guys, man. Thanks a lot once again, Dinesh and Pranav. Yes,
Thanks,
good
Prashant,
luck.
for
Thank
having me, and thanks,
yeah,
Pranav,
thanks.
as well. Have a
Yeah,
nice day.
thanks Dinesh and thanks
Yeah.
Prashant for
No
inviting me.
problem, man.
Yeah.
No